Tanks, the final frontier of strictly enforcing the Prime Directive and the badassery of the Federation. Our ongoing mission to not make a profit, but to be cool while traveling across land, because we totally don't have anti-gravity ships that are really powerful, and that's why we have always sending ground troops with no vehicle support in all the shows and movies. Yeah, actually, you know what? That kind of makes it a little different. Anyway, stardate 2024 1509. We have the Emissary AAT60. Not a new tank per se, but weirdly enough, it's a Cold War era 1 medium, while the World War II version is a Tier 9 OP tank destroyer, because it has all the attributes of a medium tank, and maybe then the concealment of a tank destroyer, while at the same time having a really surprisingly powerful 105mm boom sound. Here, the Emissary is, for appearance, we'll start with the appearance. It's really good looking. I liked how they included the nacelles as part of the turret. I was like, yeah, someone definitely had a keen eye for seeing more than just what was there. The lights do kind of give you away, even when you're not behind a bush. I do like that the barrel lights up when you fire. I think, interestingly enough, the NCC 12.8.10 is not conducive to the Federation nomenclature for their ships. That is actually a reference to when World of Tanks PC went live, August 8th, 2010. And then the only thing for appearance of this thing that I don't like is actually the secondary cannon on top of the turret. I kind of wish that wasn't there. Give it that nice streamlined look of a Federation ship. So for appearance sakes, this is a good looking tank. And it's fun. Kind of dumb if you're not into this, but I like it. Like and subscribe if you like the fake tanks. If you like having fun in your video game and don't have a problem with wargaming reminding you that this is an arcade simulator and not a tank simulator. So setup is going to be kind of simple here, especially as this will be... I'll show the first match. One of the first 3 matches. I don't think it was the first match. But my setup is kind of what I do with sort of all these high-speed tanks. Speaking of high-speed, the Type 773 has a friend! Yay! And that's kind of leads into where we're running into an issue. 2 issues, in fact. Well, the first one is this tank, along with the Type 53, Type 55, T95E3. Why can I never remember that name? This is now a sort of competitor for that. Yeah, if you're a new player, you should get this tank. Well, the Type 50, T95E3. I've been playing way too many Russian type tanks. The T95E3, you get it when you're a new player and you complete the training. This tank, like that, honestly, when you look at the penetration, you look at their armor values, kind of feel like they should be top of the era. Maybe mid, but certainly not at the very beginning. So that is kind of like, at this price point of 4,400 gold, especially with the discount right now, if you're a fan of Star Trek and you have the gold and you play this game regularly and you play Cold War mode, or if you visit Cold War mode for silver, you should probably get this tank because it does have a... If you don't like the speed of the T95E3, then this tank is definitely a strong consideration. It will be interesting and definitely recommended when they just bring in the unskinned version. And I know some of you get upset that there is no skin for the World War II version, and I agree, that is BS. So my loadout, I leave one slot open just because I'm not sure how this tank is going to go. I know it's got speed, definitely want to emphasize that. Reload is definitely something to be concerned about. Oh, actually, did I? Yeah, I went right for vents. And that's because, yes, the reload, I remember now. It's been a minute, don't worry. We'll get this out as fast as possible before Tuesday's reset, but this tank, along with the T95E3, kind of feel they're a little too good to be bottom arrow. And that's where I feel like this is one that's kind of like, yeah, you should get this if you play Arrow 1. Its armor is like that of the Batshat, that frontal hull armor. It's not much, but it's so angled, you would be very surprised by how often you can bounce rounds. The turret armor at a distance works great, and that's where you don't necessarily want to brawl with this tank. You definitely have the firepower for it, but the reload and just that traditional medium armor means you don't necessarily want to face hug, but as a support tank, pretty good. Now, before we get into the main flaws of this tank, I do want to bring up the second issue that seems to be permeating into Era 1, but I see what might be happening. Firstly, penetration values could be 10% lower at most. Like, you gotta have really good armor, which we've now realized in the IS-4M and the T95E3 out of the gate to be effective. Aside from that, depending on, you gotta angle your armor correctly, like with the T55A or the T54, and that works, but it just feels like the penetration values, especially on your top guns, on newer tanks, power creep is getting to be not bad or concerning, but starting to get noticeable. And that's why, if you notice the aim-in time and how much the blue on this reticle is flaring out, the biggest flaw with this tank, and seemed to be, especially with the introduction of the IS-3M, the IS-4M, which are Russian tanks, is accuracy. They're starting to use accuracy, or the inaccuracy of the boom spout, to kind of be a balance to that penetration, which was weird because that when I played this tank for the first time match, I was like, okay, definitely need to work on getting the action of the gun up, because it feels very Russian-esque. It's a little derpy, and you've always got to stop and wait like you would with the Russians. You got good penetration, you've got a good alpha, but you gotta wait to get some accuracy. And I'm wondering, we'll see as time goes along here. This is probably going to be the only Arrow 1 tank. That's also why I think you should get it for this year, because it's almost in there. There's only one more season. There might be a second Arrow 1 tank, but that's very rare with how the World of Tanks console division is extremely protective of Arrow 1, so they don't flood it with OP or possibly OP tanks. So yeah, another reason to get this now. And at 4,400, this is extremely affordable. I was very surprised I don't know what they worked out with Star Trek, but I guess the licensing is got a little more leeway. The short side, the downside to all this is just the commanders are just good artwork, but you get some voiceover, but they're just standard commanders, and that's kind of like, oh, you don't get a proper booster. So this bundle, this whole thing really is about the tank and then maybe the camouflage. I think that's the only downside to this whole thing. It's kind of like, once you go past the tank and look at what else is available, it's kind of lacking. The camo looks great, by the way. We really do need to have something where we can see the camouflage on a tank before buying it. That's all I have to say about that. Now here I am brawling with an IS-4M, which it was kind of more of like, he was smart. He just let me shoot at everything else. This was more of, I needed a little more support from my team, but this is Province. It's kind of, it doesn't work in Cold War. It's too many lines of sight. It's like you're kind of protected one way, but you don't realize how you've opened up. There's always a secondary way for you to be shot, and from the very beginning, practically, God, yeah, that south spawn is a little more exposed than I'd like, especially with the speed of these Air 1 tanks now. And yes, other equivalent tanks to the Emissary. There's the Type 773. I know a lot of people are going to be comparing it to the T95E3, but that doesn't have the same speed, so you're kind of looking at actually like the T55A, Object 165, not even the M48A1P. The top tier patent looks great. It's a good tank. But that's where it's also kind of unique, because now we have another fast medium, and like I said, yeah, it keeps up with the Type 773. Almost. The Type 773 is faster. It's not as heavy. So, but this really ticks off a lot of boxes, and I can see why they kind of had to tone down the accuracy and kind of make that a little like, yeah, this kind of becomes a bit of a bush sniper, and oh yeah, this. Oops, I did try to stop, but you know what? It's a fast tank, so fast tank problems. And we're just gonna have to proceed on from there. And with the magic of editing, we can now get back to the action and not be bored. So in short, Emissary as a whole is a great tank. I realize there is a portion of the community that doesn't like these kind of collaborations, doesn't see the point of them, and doesn't like all these kind of fake tanks. On that regards, also there's the fact that you have no alternative for the World War II one. That I kind of felt was a bit of a slight. They already have this tank in that mode, so why can't they get a skin? I do realize it's a high tier premium at tier 9, so it's not that much of a common tank, so that might be one reason why there wasn't a skin. But then again, you do a sale, you do something to kind of just do something like that. But yeah, it's wargaming, you know. For every one thing they do right, they do something that is questionable. You kind of go, yeah, it's like either it was just kind of like, well, this is wrong, or like, you had half a thought, and you really should have completed that thought before you went and did what you did. I think that's the biggest complaint about the entirety of this. But I mean, what is this, 8 degrees of gun depression? The Emissary is a great tank. It looks stupid fun. I mean, yeah, all these, the lighting, the barrel, they just give you way behind the bush. It's kind of hard to conceal. I mean, the matte gray works sort of as the camouflage, but it's kind of like, why is that bush kind of flickering blue? Ah, there's a tank now behind it, so That's one thing you do have to be kind of cautious with, besides the accuracy that you need to focus on. That is the thing. That's where I say this is almost a commander tank, i.e. it is kind of dependent on the commander. Like, there's a big... Some of the commander tanks I find, like the IS-3M, they have so many flaws that the only way to get them to be, in your mind, functional, or the WZ-111, is you have to have a fully and properly skilled and upgraded commander, which is kind of frustrating. So, you know, most tanks, like, oh, they have one weakness, one flaw, one quirk that is to worry about, but there's other attributes that kind of help. But in this regards, it's not quite that bad. It's just, yeah, the boom sound accuracy is where you gotta focus, and that does kind of balance it. It's just, and now I have to confess a sin, admit my hypocrisy, but as previously stated in the video, wargaming, you got me. I knew this was coming because I know it was in PC, and I didn't quite know how far you go, but when I saw there was just an Aero 1 Cold War tank and Star Trek, and it was 4,400 gold on discount. It's the only Aero 1 tank we're gonna get this year. I would be remiss not to get it as a Star Trek fanboy since I was a boy, but not a hardcore one, so I'm not gonna go full geek mode. And if anyone wants to know why this is part of the heavy metal season, do you know the weight of an Enterprise? Seriously, these ships, there is a reason why they don't do a lot of like suborbit work, despite what some of the movies and show. That's also another downside. This is based off the new J.J. Abrams Star Trek, and I'm like, at least it doesn't lens flare too badly. So, but yeah, I bought gold. I knew I said starting this year I was gonna try not to buy anything, but so far now, yeah, I have put in about $90 into the game this year. Forgive me. At least I'm telling you that I maybe there's bias now I bought it, but yeah, this fake tank was really appealing, and I'm like, you know what? Alright, so maybe by the end of this year, yep, 3 years in a row. Now the total I've put into this game is now about $300, but I keep playing it. They keep being frustrating, but damn it, sometimes they come out with something that's just the kind of fun I'm looking for. Even if we don't have a proper map boundary, even if the UI is getting overloaded with pop-ups, it still scratches an itch. And now I get to be James T. Kirk, sort of in a tank. We know, tanks weren't really a thing in the show. Gotta let that go. Yeah, but as how to play the tank, it's a support tank. You can get into position like I just did. You can snipe. I do wonder, it is a bigger tank. Like, if you put an IS-3M next to this, and that's a heavy, it's kind of like, huh. That doesn't feel as small as it did before. The IS-3M is a bit more diminutive than one would think, but that's the Russians for you. They made big things little, which also explains why their tank crews were never really comfortable. So, it is a really good tank. If you can afford it, absolutely get it, especially if you play Cold War mode. Because in all honesty, when the actual AAT60 gets ported over to this unskinned in his original, I don't know if it's gonna be close to that discount when it's released, especially afterwards. It's, yeah, for the tank purists, I know this is an insult and a slight against you, but this really is just, sometimes it's nice to know it's a game and you can't take it seriously. Although professionalism and seriousness are not necessarily mutually associated or needed, but you know, a little professional in their wargame on certain things would be nice. Yeah, so anyway, comment down below. What do you think of the Emissary? Did you get it? Are you gonna pass? Are you looking forward to getting the unskinned version? And just remember, this is a game. It's about having fun, and we all don't have fun in the same way. But we will have to revisit this conversation if World of Tanks console follows the same path that PC did, and we get Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Because on the one hand, it's absolutely ridiculous, but on the other hand, well, they came out with the skins and tanks they had for that really kind of were interesting looking. Very brightly colored, but interesting looking. So yeah, there could be kind of even more of this turned up to 11, dear viewer. So be prepared. Yeah. Hope again you liked and subscribed. Comment down below. Might be trying to get to 100 subscribers by the end of this year. There's going to be several more videos coming out. Yeah. Oh, there's no rest for the wicked. And hopefully my daughter's first cold from school doesn't hit me hard, so I can keep pumping out the videos. Anyway, I hope you keep your tracks on the ground, your RNGs in your favor. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.